Welcome. You're tuned to the Urban Affairs program. It's time to get up for Urban Perspectives with your host, Pete Rhodes.
Welcome. You're watching Urban Perspectives. This edition is sponsored in part by the Council on Black Minnesotans, Minnesota Vikings Black History Month features, and Comcast. I'm your host, Pete Rhodes. On this episode of Urban Perspectives, we introduce Mad Dads, the African American Leadership Forum, and the Minnesota Twins RBI Sports Mentorship Program. Meet these ambassadors of the community on this edition of Urban Perspectives. My first guest is a product of the Twin Cities. His career in law spans 3 decades, and he's the former board member of the Minneapolis, St. Paul, and National Urban Leagues. He's currently the executive director of the African American Leadership Forum, whose mission is to close achievement gaps, create effective policies, and build wealth in the African American communities. Please welcome to Urban Perspective, Jeffrey Hassan. Jeff, how you doing this morning?
Good. How you doing, Pete?
Good. I'm so glad to have you here. The forum has been doing fantastic work since its inception, so we're going to let our audience know a little bit about them.
Great.
Tell them what the forum is, and is it unique to the Twin Cities?
The forum is what we call a committed group of community, business, faith, political leaders who have come together to convene, collaborate, and champion for systemic changes that advance the education, economic, employment, and health needs of the Twin Cities African American community. And no, it's not unique to the Twin Cities. Originally funded by the Northwest Area Foundation, the African American Leadership Forum has chapters in Des Moines, Iowa, Portland, Oregon, Seattle, and Tacoma, Washington.
Do you guys collaborate together or best practices?
You mean the various sites?
The various sites?
Yes. Matter of fact, in December, we were all together out in Seattle to talk about, how we can reinforce each other's work and advance the collective effort.
Speaking of that type of work, Jeffrey, what are some of the projects that the African American Leadership Forum has undertaken, and how successful has the organization been thus far?
One of the big initiatives that we've had for the last 2 or 3 years has been the Baraza Women's Health Conference that's held each year that brings together 300 or 400 African American females to talk about health outcomes and ways to improve health and living in the community. In addition, the education work group has published what's now come to be known as the 5 Gaps Report, titled A Crisis in Our Community, in which one of our great leaders, Eric Mahmoud, sets forth what he refers to and what's become known in our community as the 5 gaps, those being preparation gap, time gap, teaching gap, leadership, and most importantly, the belief gap, all of which contribute to the gap between educational outcomes for African American children and white children in our community.
We had Brother Mahmoud on the set before, and he talked about those issues. Speaking of which, who makes up the membership of the African American Leadership Forum, and is it open to others as well?
Yeah, it's open to everyone, and the leadership is diverse, as is our community. So we have folks in government and politics that are involved in the Leadership Forum. We have a large number of folks in business and philanthropy. Then we have faith and religious leaders. And then we have folks that I call community action. And what I mean by that is leaders that are involved in the direct delivery of services, such as Eric Mahmoud educationally, Stella Whitney West at North Point Health and Wellness, Sandra Samuels at the Northside Achievement Zone, Giovanni Ford, who's at NCAD, a literacy and reading program for African American children. So that's what we refer to community action.
So how did you become involved in the program, Jeff? And as the new director, I understand that you have some goals in mind for it moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. So back when, probably 2008, about the time that President Obama was elected, and locally Congressman Keith Ellison, first African American and first Muslim elected to Congress, it occurred to me and others that we were at a point in our history where we had unprecedented leadership, whether it's in government, whether it was in business, whether it was in philanthropy, education, you name it. Superintendents of Minneapolis and St. Paul public schools, both were African American at that time. And it occurred to a group of us that if we can't improve or enhance the outcomes in our community, then shame on us.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, interestingly enough, we convened around the dining room table of Gary Cunningham, who at that time was the vice president of programs for Northwest Area Foundation, and we began the conversation. So a group of men started at Gary's dining room table, and at the same time, a group of women were organized by Gary, and then 6 months later brought the two groups together, and that really began the African American Leadership Forum.
I would gather this leadership forum is an important aspect to the community and its development, and I got to wish you all the best under your leadership here, that moving forth you'll get a lot of things done, and it'll continue doing the great work that it's doing already in our community. I really appreciate you being here and telling us a little bit about the African American Leadership Forum. So
if I can put in a plug, we have a big event coming up on Saturday, February 21st, we call Crafting a United Urban Agenda. So there's been this conversation for years, indeed decades, in which leaders in various sectors of our community
talk about this program. Well, we'll put a link on so individuals can, we're out of time now, but we will get back and make sure that folks get a chance to see what's happening. Thanks so much, Jeff, for being here.
Then.
Appreciate it.
All right.
Weekly here on Urban Perspectives, we present Shining Stars, highlighting people, places, and events that contribute to the vibrancy of the urban community. Our Shining Star this week is a columnist for Insight News. He's a proud member of Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity, and he is the co-producer of Lifestyles event production group, The Urbane Lifestyle. Meet our Shining Star, Harry Colbert Jr.
My name's Harry Colbert Jr. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri. I'm an editor and reporter with Insight News, and also a guest writer with the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation. And I'm also a promoter with The Urbane Life. I went to the University of Missouri, which is the #1 journalism school in the nation, and I used to work for papers and in radio back home in St. Louis. Got out of writing, forayed into so many other things. I owned a nightclub and did promotions back home. When I moved here, I actually moved here because a friend of mine had a law firm, and I came up here to help him run the business aspect of it. We are the fastest growing demographic in the Twin Cities. Urban professionals, African American professionals, are the fastest growing demographic, and quite honestly, the Twin Cities is one of the best kept secrets in the nation. The Urbane Life, and urbane means smooth and polished, and what we do is we have events that are catered towards the urban professionals here in the Twin Cities. We do concerts, special events. We recently did a large-scale concert at Father Hennepin Bluffs Park, where we partnered with the City of Minneapolis Parks and Recreation, and we brought Guapole, Martin Luther, a young lady from my hometown, St. Louis, Teresa Payne. We had some local artists on the show as well, and we brought out about 1,600 invitees who got to enjoy that event. We've been able to bring in Eric Roberson, Anthony David, Dwele, Algebra, Guapole. We were involved in the Dakota show with Ruben Studdard and Layla Hathaway. So we've been quite active within the past year and a half here. And that's the one thing that I'd like to see more of, is that connectedness. And that's one of the things that we try to do, not only through Insight, but also with The Urbane Life. Hey, I'm Harry Colbert, and you're watching Urban Perspectives.
Thanks, Harry. My next guest is the recipient of the National Crime Prevention Council Award of Excellence and the City of Minneapolis Civil Rights and Human Rights Awards, just to name a few. Meet this outstanding community ambassador, VJ Smith, next on Urban Perspective. Welcome back. Our next guest is a former morning show co-host with me on CBLS Cable FM. He is now the founder and president of the Minneapolis chapter of Mad Dads and the national president of that chapter as well. His passion is to see the lives of young people headed in the wrong direction change to positive outcomes. His own life involved many negatives, which he now uses to promote hope and help in our communities. Please welcome to Urban Perspectives, my friend VJ Smith. VJ, how you doing, man?
Hey, it's great to see you, man. Let me just say this. Before I say anything, I want to thank you for blessing me. You really helped me out. I also want to thank Archie Gibbons. I want to thank Bishop Howell and John Turnipseed, pioneers, African-American men that really got behind me and mentored me, made me who I am today.
We had so much fun, didn't we?
Yes, sir.
We used to have so much fun in the morning time. But VJ, you know, Mad Dads has been doing a great work here, a great divinely driven work. What does Mad Dads stand for the audience, and how did you get involved with the organization?
Well, you know, I was walking the streets of South Minneapolis trying to figure out what to really do. I wanted to give back. I took so much away from the community. I wanted to give back. And so I figured out that the men in our community need some mentors, needed somebody to lead them in the right direction. Started in South Minneapolis, just hitting the streets, and it grew from there and started finding out how do you write grants, how do you get support, how do you do all that, and how do you give back. Start working with kids, taking them on field trips and doing positive things. And then I met Art Erickson. He gave me some office space and he introduced me to the Mad Dads concept, but I actually started a group called Black on Black Love.
Okay.
And he said, well, what about Mad Dads? And so we switched and we started Mad Dads.
Yeah, fantastic. How important is Mad Dads, you think, in providing a line of communication and connection for, you know, citizens locally here and nationally in these turbulent times that we have?
Well, you know, men are, you know, I go to the jails all the time and I see many of our smart, intelligent, and bright brothers that are locked down for many years. And I see these families as they struggle. And so I know it's important for men like us to be out there, to be more in one place. So just because your family's doing well, you need to bless another family. We need to be doing more mentoring. Been working with Susan Taylor and Minneapolis Cares and others to create mentorship, My Brother's Keepers and all those things because it's important. And we found out when men show up, the boys sit down. And so we get these boys to sit down. Right now we're working with Emerge and taking gang members off the streets and showing them how to give back to the community. That's what we've got to do.
That sit down, they listen.
That's right.
And when they can listen, they can understand how they can be a positive reflection of their community. Now, President Obama came here to the Twin Cities and you met with him, had an opportunity. What was discussed at that meeting and has it led to positive outcomes?
Well, for me, you know, I've been working hard. It's all about work. It's all about getting the work done. Meeting the president was just an opportunity for me to see that I have the opportunity to see dreams come true. You know, when you go from the streets to the suites, it's a beautiful thing. So everything's kind of organized, so the lights come, the flashes come, all the cameras and all that. You only get a few moments, but he wanted to hear some positive things that we were doing, that Mad Dads was doing in the community to make a difference. And we were able to share that with him. And so we're still waiting for the outcomes to come up.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll make it and push it, make it happen, shake it up, make it happen.
Sir.
What has being involved with this organization done for you now, VJ, in terms of your life now?
Well, you know, Pete, you know, I've always had a lot of energy.
Yeah.
And I've always had a lot of vision, and I've always been a person with a visionary. And you know, when we started with buttons and hitting the block, it was with tuxedos on and all that. That was a vision I had, and you said, man, that's great, let's do that.
Yeah.
And so I took all those talents and gifts that I had, put them all together and figured out, and I tell kids all the time, if you figure out where your talents and your gifts are, you don't have to worry about what you're going to do, but you have to figure that out. And doing the work with you and many others, I figured out what my talents and gifts were, and I found my niche, and my niche is transforming lives and making sure that people understand that they are a gift from God, and they have the ability to be transformed into something great. Something worthwhile and something productive. And that's always been my reason for doing this.
So important, VJ, the work that you're doing. Mad Dad work is supported by volunteers, we know, donations. How do people get involved with the organization? How can we now help?
Well, you can go to our website and support us, but also we need volunteers, people that want to get out and make a difference. We got schools where kids are suffering, and we don't have enough of us there to reach out to those kids. We just recently had a teacher say, man, I want to give up. But that's because that teacher doesn't have support. When you got teachers going, parents going to the school causing havoc and raising problems and being negative, we need parents to go there and be positive and lift up our kids and lift up our teachers. Our teachers are hurting and they need us just like we need them.
Well, VJ, you are doing a fantastic work with the volunteers. You have some events that happen each and every year with the seniors and others. You're still doing those pieces. We'll make sure that individuals get. But if you had one thing that you would say in the 10 seconds that we have for a young individual who is on the fence, what would that be?
Well, what would that be was that God created you. And he didn't create you to steal cell phones. He didn't create you to rob people. He didn't create you to sell drugs and make people hurt and be addicted. But he did create you for something wonderful and something great. And if you just take time to really let God really lead you and be patient, because right now we're in a microwave world, but be patient and watch what happens.
VJ Smith, my friend,
thank you.
Keep doing the work. We keep praying for you out there, and be safe and keep doing the work you're doing.
Thank you, brother.
All right. Coming up, I'll talk with a long-standing volunteer coach and Minnesota Twins youth coordinator. Batter up next, Frank White, here on Urban Perspectives.
Well, Black History Month means so much to so many people, and everyone has a different perspective on it. And Justice Page, what comes to mind when you hear the totality of a Black History Month?
The history of African Americans in this country, from slavery to the Jim Crow South, to the changes that have taken place, and to all that still needs to be done.
Mm-hmm. Now this is staggering. I mean, you can touch it, you can feel it. Tell us what you have in your hands.
These are slave neck collars for women. They come with a key. I mean, think about what that must do to a person. I mean, it's hard to comprehend that you would put something like this around a person's neck.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the men's version. You put that around their neck and lead them around to do whatever it is you want them to do. It almost leaves you, it almost leaves me speechless.
And these are
the
real artifacts.
The real artifacts from slavery. Some human being had this placed around his neck and was held in bondage.
My next guest is dedicated to the empowerment of young people in our communities. He's a board member to many state associations that provide athletic services to the youth. He's been a District 4 commissioner of ASA softball and a high school and college basketball official for 30 years. He's in shape. He's currently the Minnesota Twins RBI coordinator. Please welcome to Urban Perspectives, Frank White. Frank, how you doing this morning?
I'm doing wonderful, Pete. I'm honored to be here, man. Thank you.
Well, I am honored that you are here because you are a purveyor of history, and in particular history around African Americans and their participation in America's sport, baseball. So I start out by asking you, what is the Twins RBI Association and program stand for, and what does this organization do for youth in our community?
The Minnesota Twins RBI program, Reviving Baseball in Inner Cities, is a part of the overall Major League Baseball program, which is started back in like 1993. I'm getting ready to start my 15th season, so I started in 2001.
Yeah.
And the organization, again, is primarily for us here in Minnesota, is to get a better opportunity for more kids to play baseball and softball, including girls now playing fast pitch softball. When it first started, it was just baseball, but now it's also including girls. So the Twins, through a partnership with Minneapolis and St. Paul Park and Rec, in a side-by-side program, offer registration. So it's kind of like people refer to it as, well, it's the Park and Rec program, where it's really side by side, it's one and the same. We have probably about 4,500 kids playing baseball all the way from the youngest age groups all the way up to our 18 and under age groups. And so primarily right now we've been involved in just providing that opportunity to learn the game of baseball and softball, providing kids with skills through clinics and play. And hopefully in the near future we're going to enter into some things where we're providing resources in terms of for parents to know what's available as their kids are involved in school.
So important. You know, we know that you are a historian in terms of baseball around here, the go-to guy, so to speak. Tell us about the Minnesota African-American connection in early baseball history a little bit, and why is the Twins RBI program later important to this legacy in the future?
Well, I think I'm excited. I have an exhibit and an upcoming book on Minnesota black baseball. And I think it's important for all of us to know the history of those guys and ladies that played baseball here. Right now people don't know, and there's so many names that I could do. We don't have time for that. But it's a tremendous history. And along with that, in my exhibit, in my book, I also talk about here in Minnesota, you know, we had Jim Crow here. We had segregated baseball here. People need to know that history, and I think that's important, along with celebrating those individuals that were outstanding baseball players.
So we had the baseball team here before, even before the Negro League?
Oh, we going back to the early 1900s, there was a team called the St. Paul Colored Gophers on the St. Paul side, and then also the Keystones on the Minneapolis side, which was a great rivalry. But back in 1909, the St. Paul Colored Gophers were proclaimed the black national champions. Oh, wow. And there was some controversy about that because they didn't play everybody. It was just a combination of who they played in common. But they ended up beating a team out of the Leland Giants out of Chicago to get that acclaim. So we've got a long history of African Americans playing baseball here in Minnesota.
That's fantastic. Now, Frank, what are your goals with the RBI program? You say you've been with it for a while, and how do interested members in the community get involved with it as well?
People that are interested can go to their local recreation center in either Minneapolis or St. Paul, or we have a website. They can call me to get involved. I think personally my goals is we want to give kids an opportunity to play baseball. I think in our community we've kind of forgotten about baseball, and but right now we have more kids of color playing baseball than we probably have in the last 40 years, and I happen to know that because in 1972 I took the picture of our last all-black baseball team in St. Paul, which Steve Winfield and Bill Peterson were coaching at the time. So I think we're shifting our goals. At first we were just trying to get kids to play ball and learn. Recently now we're trying to get more kids to enter college playing the game of baseball, and I'm happy to announce that this past season the Minnesota Twins took one of our kids in the 21st round. He was drafted by the Twins. We have got a couple kids. A kid named Keanu Smith is at Ridgewater Community College, and Corey Dixon is playing Division II ball at the University of Mary. So we're finally getting more kids of color, African American kids, entering college and playing baseball.
Great work, Frank. I mean, you've been out there on the field and doing it the way it should be done. We'll be putting a link up about the other information in your books, and I just thank you for being here with me today. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, Pete.
Frank White, Frank White, appreciate it. Thank you for joining us on Urban Perspectives. I'd like to thank my sponsors, the Council on Black Minnesotans, the Minnesota Vikings Black History Month programs, Comcast, my guests, Jeffrey Hassan, VJ Smith, and Frank White. And of course, our shining star, Harry Colbert Jr. And of course, you, the audience, for getting up with Urban Perspective. Visit our website at urbanperspectives.tv for information on our guests and where you can find links to previous broadcasts. And you can help us grow by liking our Facebook page. And remember, there are positive things happening in our cities. See them right here on Urban Perspectives. Now enjoy the photos of the week featuring the North Central Minority Supplier Development Council. I'm Pete Rhodes. Pray for me, I'll pray for you, and I'll see you next week.